Right off the bat, with any detailing job, it's important to figure out what the priorities are. What stands out to you on this truck that needs to be fixed, needs to be remedied, because you need to spend the majority of your attention on the things that matter. You don't need to waste time on things that don't really need to be done. I don't know, you tell me, what stands out on this truck the most that needs to be fixed in order for this to look like a nice truck again? I'll give you a hint. Look at that. These headlights have been bugging me ever since I met this poor girl and I saw her truck sitting out in the gym parking lot. I've been dying to restore these, and today is the day. The other big thing that stands out is these rust stains in the paint from the door handles. Very common on these trucks, but I'm hoping we should be able to polish out the paint and get rid of those. To me, those are the two biggest things that stand out that this truck needs. Aside from that, we are going to do a correction on the entire paint job. Of course, we're going to polish it. The rest is just mainly just a real good thorough cleaning. These wheels need to be cleaned up. We're going to clean up a little bit in the wheel wells here. But by the time we're done, this is going to be a nice, clean, shiny pickup truck again. And I think it's going to be getting some compliments. Now, first things first, before we can get started on any of that other stuff, we need to clean this thing up. And it needs a real good thorough washing. So I'm going to get the pressure washer set up, and we're going to go to town on getting all the dirt and grime off of this thing so that we can get down to just the bare paint. So I just have some soap in my wheel bucket here. We're going to be using the Simoniz wheel cleaner here, and this is a heavier duty, it's an acid base cleaner. So this is some pretty hardcore stuff. If your wheels are only mildly dirty, I wouldn't say that you need to use something like this. This is more for a truck like this. Perfect case where it's been neglected, the wheels are really dirty, and we need something with some pretty heavy duty cleaning power in order to clean them up. Perfectly safe to use. You don't have to worry about the finish of your wheels or anything, but as with anything in detailing, if something isn't required, then just don't do it. If your wheels are fairly clean, you don't need an acid base cleaner. You can just use something more mild, or even just stick with your wheel soap, which is what I do a lot of the time. In this case, we need something that's a heavier duty cleaner like this. For the tires, we've got their tire cleaner, and I've been testing this recently on all of my other vehicles, and I'm a huge fan. This stuff really does a good job of getting rid of that. It's called tire blooming. So if you ever noticed that your tires have sort of a brown tinge to them, it's almost like a stain that doesn't just scrub off. This stuff works really well at kind of melting it off your tire. So we're going to be using this on the tires. As for brushes, this brush, obviously this is meant for tires, and we're going to be using this with the tire cleaner to scrub those heavily neglected tires. We've got a wool wheel brush here. This guy we're going to use, I think, probably for the inner wheel barrels to scrape all the buildup that's inside the wheels that you can't reach with anything else. This one, probably should have showed you these before I put them in the soapy water. This one we're going to use for the spokes and more of the face of the wheel. And then we also have this big long-handled one for, this will be for the fender liners, like inside the fender, everything that we can't reach. So even make some parts of the frame, because again, this does have a nice new frame on it. We want to keep it clean now. So yeah, we're going to use a mixture of these brushes. So we got the wheels and tires cleaned up, and they're looking a lot better already. You can see now the rubber is just nice black rubber again, no big brown stains anywhere. And these are old tires too, guys. These are the, keep in mind, these are the stock wheels from the 4Runner, so these are pretty old. So now on to washing the paint, and I'm going to be using this Simoniz Snow Foam Wash. And I'm not using their other product that they have. They have a like a hybrid SiO2 based car soap, which I'm sure is good, but in this case we don't want to use that because we don't want to leave something behind on the paint after we're done washing it. Remember, we're going to be correcting this paint job, we're going to be polishing it, and we don't want to leave a wax or a sealant or SiO2, whatever those products, we don't want to have that on the surface when we're trying to polish it. We need it to be bare paint. So I'm going with this stuff. This is just a straight car soap. It's supposed to be more of a foaming formulation too, so we're going to be using this in the foam cannon. And the dilution here is about 50-50, so I got it up to 10 ounces here of product. I'm going to be filling up to the 20 ounce mark with water. 50-50, straightforward. And then we're going to be putting some of this in our wash bucket. I don't really measure this stuff out too much. I just pour what feels like the right amount. I think it's like 60 milliliters or something for a 4-gallon bucket. Close enough. I'm not splitting hairs over that. Okay, got our wash bucket full, the foam cannon is full. Two more things. We've got a dirt trap here, and if you aren't familiar with these, you put these in the bottom of your bucket and it just keeps the dirt from coming up into your wash mitt when you're dipping it back in. So we're going to throw that in there. Speaking of wash mitts, we've got the big Simoniz one here. I've been using this one lately too. It's nice. It's a little bit oversized, bigger than a lot of the other microfiber ones that you see on the market, which is good if you're like me, you got big hands, or if you're washing a lot of bigger vehicles, pickup trucks, stuff like that with a lot of real estate. So I'm going to throw that in there too. As usual, I'm starting off with a pre-rinse with a pressure washer, and this is just to get the bulk of the contaminants off, the bigger chunks of mud and dirt, just to get it ready before we actually start touching the paint. Then it's onto the foam cannon. This is the part that everybody loves to see. It's always fun. And this soap did a surprisingly good job of foaming. You can see that it was just the right consistency of like shaving cream almost. For an off-the-shelf product that you can just easily find, I'm a big fan of this soap for use in the foam cannon. And I think I'm going to be keeping this one in stock myself for the future. I really like the way that this worked with my pressure washer combination. Then it's just a matter of going through and doing a typical 2-bucket wash. You'd think this wouldn't be super important considering I'm going to be polishing this truck anyways, that I don't have to worry about putting swirl marks in, but in this case, adding more swirl marks just is going to be adding more work for me to polish out later, so I was still extra careful. You can see I've got a second bucket there for a rinse bucket. Every time I pull the wash mitt off the truck, I'll rinse it out first before I go back into the gray bucket, which is my soapy water. Then it's just one more final rinse to get the rest of the soap residue off. And then I'm drying it off with the Simoniz drying towel. This is a nice big thick towel, nice and fluffy, and it absorbs a lot of water. I can dry off this entire truck without having to wring it out even once, which is definitely helpful. Okay, next up we got to restore these headlights. And so I'm going to be using this Simoniz kit, and this is their heavy duty version. I'm not sure what the difference is between this and their light duty version, but this includes everything that you need to restore your headlights. It's got all the sandpaper, it's got a polish, and the most important thing to me is it has a sealant to put back on them, because when you restore these headlights, essentially you're sanding off the failed UV coating. So if you leave them bare, they're just going to turn yellow again like in a matter of weeks. So we need to reseal them with something, and this kit has something in it. So let's get started on that. I'm starting off with 1000 grit sandpaper, and the whole goal here is to remove all that failed UV coating. So all that yellow stuff has to come off in this step. That's the main goal, is to get the headlights essentially clear in that they're not yellow anymore, but they're still be very cloudy, of course, with all the sanding marks. But we want to get the yellow stuff off. That's the focus here. then I step up to 2000 grit. Same idea, still just sanding by hand. I choose to go in the same direction every time. I think I've been doing it long enough that I can tell which spots I've missed. I don't really need to see a crosshatch pattern to know which is which. And then one final step of sanding is 3000 grit. And this is going to get you pretty close to the end result. This will be a little bit cloudy, but this will be the last step for sanding. And then we're going to switch over to polishing after that. So you want to make sure that they're looking pretty clear at this point. And you definitely want to make sure that there's no more yellow left. Otherwise you're going to have to go back and start all over again to get the leftover coating off. Then at this point, if you're using everything in the kit, you'd switch over to the drill attachment and the polisher ball. And then that's what you would use to polish the sanding marks out. In this case, I'm just using my regular buffer with my polishing pad. And I'm also using the compound that I'm going to be using on the paint too. I didn't bother switching over to the Headlight specific polish. Very similar. I figured I might as well just keep the pad that I'm going to use in the tight spots on the paint and repurpose it for this as well. If you don't have a polisher, it's perfectly okay to just use the drill attachment though, and that'll do a good job for you too. And at this point, you should have some nice clear headlights, and you want to double check your work, or at least I like to double check my work. I'll turn the headlights on and just make sure I didn't miss any sanding marks or anything. Having light coming from the inside sometimes will reveal some spots that are not visible from the outside. Alright, we got an idea of what kind of a fix we can do on these headlights just by restoring them. And as you can see, it's not quite like getting a brand new headlight, but considering the shape that these things are in, this is a really good result. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to do this other one to make it match, and then we'll seal them up, and hopefully we won't have to do this again for quite some time. Okay, so the final step with the headlight restoration is to put this sealant. We've got to put a new headlight sealant on here, because now these are bare clear plastic, which means they're going to turn yellow right away if we don't seal them up with something. So the kit says to put this stuff on this orange pad and rub it on, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we buff it off. She's starting to look real clean now. Fixing those headlights, and then combined with the freshly painted front bumper, this thing is starting to look really good. So I think we're starting to get somewhere. Bad news is I'm about to run out of daylight here, and definitely not enough time to polish the paint, so we're going to have to pick this back up on another day. Alright, we're back on the Tacoma again today, and some of you guys can probably relate to this. I just haven't had the time to devote to doing this project start to finish in one day. I got a lot of stuff going on, and you might be in the same boat where you're trying to detail your truck after work or just in a few hours here and there. It's not the end of the world, guys. You can work on it just in the amount of time that you have every day. If you want to just polish one panel at a time or something, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the average person, sometimes you gotta just work with what you got. And so the main thing to remember is just always rewash the vehicle before you're going to pick back up with polishing or something. You don't want to leave this thing sitting outside overnight and collecting dust and dew and all that, and then go straight to polishing, because that's no good. You always want to be working on fresh bare paint. Okay, so here's the clay bar kit from Simoniz, and as you can see, it comes in a box. They give you a nice soft microfiber towel, a bottle of spray wax. These are your clay bars right here. Now you got two separate bars in individual packaging, so that's a good amount of clay that you get. This is going to be more than enough to do one vehicle. You'll be able to do a few vehicles with this, realistically. More than likely you're going to be like me, and you can actually split one of these bars up in half. This is kind of sticky. I cut this in half. This is all you really need, just enough to fill your hand, level it out. You don't need to have a huge block of clay in your hand when you're claying a vehicle. If anything, having a nice thin piece like this will be easier to get into all the kind of little tight spots and stuff because it's more flexible. So I would recommend not grabbing an entire block out of this and going to town. Cut it in half. If you need more, you can always grab another one, but this is a good place to start. Okay, so I've just done this half of the hood here so far. So we're going to wipe off the spray wax. Take a look at everything that came off onto that clay bar. See all the black stuff? That's all contaminants that were bonded to the paint. So now this is feeling nice and smooth. This is ready to be polished. Over here, I don't know if you can hear that. In here. Alright, so we got it all clay barred now, it's ready for polishing. And ideally I want to show you guys that you can polish your vehicle outside, you can do all this detailing outside. If you don't have a garage to work in, it's not a problem. You can do it outside, direct sunlight, as long as you're working smart and you're working quickly. But because this is a silver vehicle, it's so hard to show the scratches and the damage in the first place, which is a good thing, 9 times out of 10. But in this case, you can't really see how bad it is in the beginning, so I'm actually going to pull it inside the garage here just to do kind of a test pan. I'm going to do part of the hood. I'm going to do a before and after shot just so you can see the difference that we're going to make over the whole truck, and then I'll pull it back out into the driveway so you can see that you don't need to have a fancy shop and everything to be able to detail your truck. Okay, so I brought the truck in here to be able to show you the condition of the paint a little bit better. And the way you do this is you want to turn the lights off. And you want to have your only light source be, in this case, your inspection light. And this is how we're going to see what kind of swirl marks and scratches we have in the paint here. I'm not sure how much is going to show up on camera, but you can see all those swirl marks. And this truck, they're pretty deep too. I wouldn't be surprised if this truck has never been polished. It's been a work truck most of its life, so there's a good chance that this thing has gone 15 years with never being polished. And this is the original finish on the paint. And we've got 15 years of scratches and dents on this thing. So the good news is silver doesn't show scratches like any other color. That's really helpful. That we can get away with a lot. We don't have to be chasing perfection on this truck. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is it's kind of hard to show you before and afters with the paint in the starting condition, because it just doesn't seem that bad, especially on camera. So I'm going to be using the Simoniz compound and polish here. This is what we're going to start with. And this is what we're going to do our heavy-duty cutting with. I'm going to use a microfiber cutting pad just because I know I'm going to need something aggressive, because everything that's in this paint is pretty deep. And then we're going to polish up with this polishing compound. This is going to refine the paint. This is a little bit more aggressive, so it might leave the paint a little bit hazy. This will clear it up that final rest of the way. And then as a potential bonus step, we might use this. This would be your third step in the process. This is a finishing glaze, and this is intended to go over top of the paint, kind of like a layer of wax, and this is going to fill in any remaining scratches, the bigger, deeper stuff that you can't really polish out. So we might use this, we might not. Well, I'll see what the end result of the paint is first, and if I feel like it's needed, I'll show you guys how to use this too. Alright, I don't normally do a tape line for a 50/50, but this is an old work truck, so forgive me, it doesn't really matter. But as you can see, we're making some good progress here. Here's the before. Again, it's kind of hard to see the swirl marks and the scratches that are in this, but there's definitely a lot, and they're in pretty deep. And this is the after shot. I did both the compound and the polish step on this just to test it out to see what the end result looks like, and I'm really happy with that. We're going to go with that combination for the whole truck, and I'm just going to blast through this whole thing now and make the whole truck match this one test spot, and this thing's going to look amazing. Here I'm going to show you sort of a real-time example of how I'm polishing the paint on this thing. Using a 5-inch microfiber cutting pad on this, on my 15mm long fill polisher for the larger sections. And I tend to have a faster arm speed than a lot of people. I move around a lot quicker with heavier pressure. And I don't use a crosshatch pattern like most people recommend either. That's just a preference thing. You don't have to polish like me. In fact, I'd recommend that you stick with the basics at first if you're new to all this. Every once in a while you'll see me kind of scrubbing a few spots here and there. That's just me working a deeper scratch, just kind of going by feel. And then I'll switch over to a smaller machine with a 3-inch version of the same pad just for these tighter spots. And I'll go back and forth between these two machines. I'm not going super in depth on this truck like you've seen me in some other detail videos where I get the little 1-inch pads out and everything. In this case, I'm just using those two machines to buzz the paint down. We're not chasing perfection here. We're not trying to fix every single scratch. So I'll step up the speed here now. You can see me finish off the rest of this section. Now you'll notice that I'm still using the same machine, but I've switched over to a yellow foam pad. This is a polishing pad, and now I've switched to the more mild refinement polish. And the whole idea here is just to buzz down the whole area. It's a lot more general. I'm not specifically chasing scratches anymore. I'm just refining the whole area just with the one polisher, just to get the clarity out after the compounding stage. So this is the second step in a 2-step process. Now I pulled the truck back outside just so you can get a better view from here. And I'm still continuing to use the smaller 3-inch pad in the tighter spots. Like most of this front fender, actually, I just stuck with a small pad. And I was also using it on things like the pillars where the larger pad just doesn't fit quite as well. It's a little bit better to have better surface area with the pad in the smaller spots with the small pad. Then I switched back up to the big boy again for these larger panels like the door. It's wide and flat, so I can just motor through it with a bigger polishing pad. You'll see here, again, you'll see me doing kind of a scrubbing motion. That's that bigger scratch that was about halfway up the door that you saw in the before shots. I was trying to work that as much as I could safely. I didn't want to overheat the panel. I didn't want to remove too much clear coat, and so I'm being extra careful there, but I'm keeping an eye on the temperature. Working enough to try and improve that scratch. I'm not able to get all of it out, but I want to work enough to improve it, but not go too far and overheat the paint. You also see that after every pass, I'm blowing my pad out with compressed air, and for me that's a really big deal. It blows out all the residue of the spent polish and even the clear coat that we're pulling off of the paint. It's always best to work clean, so get that stuff out of your pad after every pass if you can. And here, of course, you see I'm finally scrubbing those rust stains off the door from underneath the door handle. That was definitely a rewarding part of this job, for sure. Okay, we got all of our compounding and polishing done. And it's looking pretty good. Brought the gloss back out of the paint for sure, which is what we're looking for. A lot of the heavier scratches are still in there. That was to be expected. In order to get this like show quality, honestly, this truck needs to be repainted. Bare minimum, I'd have to wet sand it to get a lot of that deeper stuff out, but I'm really happy with the results here. This is looking really good for just a few hours with a buffer. So now I'm going to jump right to the Simoniz ceramic sealant. This is as simple as wax on, wax off, so I'll just show you real quick. No different than applying a wax. You run this over the whole truck and it'll be protected. It'll stay shiny and easier to clean now for the next while. I thought I'd throw in another quick clip here of the before shots, just a reminder of the condition of this truck at the beginning of the video, with the stains and the scratches and the faded headlights and the dirty wheels and tires, the dirty wheel wells. It wasn't looking its best, that's for sure. Again, unfortunately, because it's silver, you can't see the deep scratches that are in it and the difference afterwards, but You can tell, at least with the clarity and the reflections, that we've made a big difference here. Alright, it's time for the final results. This is the finished product. So it's been compounded, polished, and sealed with a ceramic sealant. Looking pretty good now. And the best part is we've officially accomplished the goal here. Every product that I used on this truck to make it look this way, you can buy off the shelves at Canadian Tire. So I'm used to using the professional grade stuff that I normally use to polish a car, and this stuff worked great. I really can't complain at all. Of course, some things were a little bit more mild than the professional grade stuff. That was to be expected. That's just for added safety in case you don't know what you're doing. You're not going to mess up your paint. So overall, I'm really pleased. This truck is looking great now. We're finally starting to get somewhere. So stay tuned, guys. We still have lots more to do to this thing. We got to replace some of those trim pieces on the back. And there's another cool project coming up soon too, I think, that we'll be testing out some new tires on this. And might be using some new wheels in order to do that. So hopefully we'll get this thing sitting right, looking a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more ready for any kind of weather. Or maybe some off-roading, who knows. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this one helpful. Make sure to check out Canadian Tire if you want to try the Simoniz Platinum line. I can officially vouch for it. It did the trick, and very easy to use too.